Yes, now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Thomas Rants YouTube channel. It is the next day, by next day I mean the 1st of September, the night after Misfits Boxing X Series 17. I made a predictions video, let's see how right I was. Jumping into the first fight, I believe this was the only fight I technically got wrong, because the first fight was Minicon versus DTG. Now, although I may have chose the wrong winner, I believe I didn't predict this wrong. What I said about this fight is it's very 50-50. Minicon has a reach, a height advantage and a bit of an experience advantage, yet DTG seems to have a lot better skill set from what we've seen. So I said this fight could go either way, it could be difficult for both men. And I said both men have something to prove, but I'm going to root for DTG. Now obviously Minicon won, so technically I predicted it wrong, but I was right in the fact that it was very 50-50. I was right in the fact that Minicon's reach would prove a massive problem for DTG. I was right in the fact that both men had something to prove, because looking at the performances of both those men, DTG and Minicon, improved their performances massively. DTG already looked good in there, but it was against easy opponents. Against Minicon, someone who's experienced, DTG looked very good in there. He was sharp when throwing punches, he was accurate when throwing punches, he was thinking about what punches to throw. Minicon looked a lot better, probably because he was in there with an opponent that wasn't bigger than him. So yeah, both men improved massively. I rooted for DTG, but Minicon got the win, and I'm not mad. And in the post-fight interviews with like Fred Beck and stuff like that, Minicon said he is now going to fight Josh Bruckner in the semi-finals. So Josh Bruckner versus Minicon in the semi-finals. I don't see Minicon passing Josh Bruckner, but we'll see. That's an interesting fight. But the second fight on the kickoffs was the Mike Edwards Jake Cornish fight. I knew nothing about either two. I just knew that Mike Edwards was miles taller, and I said this would prove a problem because he'd just have a reach. And I thought he would steam through him, but it turns out, first of all, in their debut fight, they went 5 rounds. Hats off to them. And I was right, the reach did prove a massive problem for Jake Cornish. Mike Edwards just kept him at range and jabbed him and 1-2s, essentially. It was just 1-2s the whole fight for 5 rounds. Quite boring, but yeah. He didn't blitz him. He could have, but obviously that's a bit of an inexperience. He probably didn't feel comfortable doing that yet. So he's automatically entered into the semi-finals. Now, because Minicon's fighting Josh Bruckner, that tells me Mike Edwards is fighting Le'Veon Bell. Now, obviously, Mike Edwards, with the inexperience he has, I'd be surprised if he made it past Le'Veon Bell. He will not. Le'Veon Bell will knock out Mike Edwards. Now, looking at the 4 in the semi-finals, Le'Veon Bell, Josh Bruckner, Minicon, and Mike Edwards. Mike Edwards is easily the weakest out of those 4. Minicon maybe might fight for a spot, but Josh Bruckner and Le'Veon Bell are the 2 big names in that semi-final. And I think Misfits has made a smart move here by not having Le'Veon and Josh face off in the semi-finals, because they are the 2 best in the tournament, and they need to face off in the finals. And I think that's how it always should be. That's how it always should be, right? Where you have Mike Edwards and Minicon, who aren't as good as Josh Bruckner and Le'Veon Bell. Put Le'Veon Bell against Minicon, or vice versa, or whatever, and Josh Bruckner against Mike Edwards. So then we get the best 2 in the finals. Because if we put the best 2 in the semi-finals, and then Le'Veon Bell and Josh Bruckner scrap and have a really close fight, and then Le'Veon Bell comes out on top, and then Minicon and Mike Edwards fight, and then Minicon and Mike Edwards have quite a close fight, but it's not as talented as the other fight, and then say Minicon gets a win, then Minicon goes to the final against Le'Veon Bell, and Le'Veon Bell steamrolls them. It's just not right. You need the 2 best in the finals. It gives it prestige. So I was right with predicting Mike Edwards, and I was sort of right with the Minicon fight, with how the fight went, not with the result. So fair. With the Minicon fight as well, they could have selected DTG as the winner, and I don't think many people would have complained that fight genuinely could have went either way. Now, obviously, the main card, I watched those on the kickoffs on YouTube. On the main card, I did not watch the main card because the Zone charges you 25 quid these days. Absolutely not. Just get lost. But, with the amount of clips uploaded to Twitter on, thankfully, Deji's Snapchat story and stuff like that, I could see most, and the highlights did a decent job. So I've seen clips of most of the fights. Sami Hamed, the son of Prince Nassim Hamed, just completely ran through Jesse Clark. I mean, that was to be expected, you know, because Jesse Clark had no prior boxing experience, and Sami Hamed is the son of a legend, so that's to be expected. Then Dean the Great versus Dave Fogarty. I put my money on Dean, but obviously with how Dave was talking, and apparently he's an experienced fighter, I thought this might actually be a difficult fight for Dean. And it did prove, from what I've seen, Dave Fogarty was very good in it. He's very quick, very powerful, but Dean just caught him with the right shots, and Dean does what he does. Whether he's getting dominated, whether he is dominating, he will end up landing a shot that will knock the opponent out, and that's what Dean the Great did. Fair plays, fair plays. I mean, Dean the Great's saying he's not caring about anyone in the lightweight tournament. He's only looking up, and he's looking towards Shakur Stevenson and Ryan Garcia. I think that's the quickest way to get himself knocked out and lose his big prestige that he's got as an undefeated fighter. I think whoever wins the lightweight tournament, because it's going to be very close, if Joey Knight can get past Lil Cray Cray, Joey Knight versus Yuri Gang will be a close fight, and we already know Lil Cray Cray versus Yuri Gang is a close fight. Any one of those faces off against Dean the Great, it's a very close fight. So yeah, what's next for Dean is, obviously, I would wait for the winner of the lightweight tournament. I wouldn't jump to try and get a fight with Shakur or Ryan, because you're not going to get it. Realistically, Ryan Garcia is like basically banned from boxing, so you're not going to get that one unless it's a spar. And Shakur Stevenson is literally an established pro boxer. There's no way they're going to set up a fight with Dean the Great and Shakur Stevenson. But it is what it is. Let him believe what he wants to believe. Then we had HS Tikitoki versus George Fensom. It is exactly how I said. George Fensom, you could see how, even HS said it, he was so nervous. He did not want to be there. He did not want to fight. He was there for the money and the opportunity. And maybe he had a bit of a false sense of security because he was convincing himself that he was going to be okay in there. But when I saw that fight, I genuinely don't know if he just cannot fight and he got hit and went down, or he was just trying to get out there as quick as possible, because HS would literally touch him, and he would jump to the floor. It seemed fake. It seemed fake, like he just wanted to just make it seem like he's knocked out so the referee can call it off and he gets his money and leaves, because that was atrocious. I don't even think HS hit him that hard, honestly. Honest to God, HS could hit a 120 pounder like that and it wouldn't fall. So yeah, that was a bit strange, but to be expected, to be fair. George Fensom, you can just tell the energy was not there. He was not ready to fight. HS said from here he either wants to fight that Zerka guy who he had the street fight with, which, I mean, could be a good fight, but he also said he wants to fight Bradley Martin. I think Bradley Martin would make a lot more sense. I mean, not a lot more sense, because obviously he has beef with Zerka, but Bradley Martin's a way better fight, in my opinion. He probably draws more attention as well. But we'll see how that goes. Then, Dublin Ireland's own Ben Williams takes on Warren the Mackay Spencer. Now, I said this would be very close, because obviously Warren is for Aaron Chalmers. He's quite decent, but also so is Ben Williams. I thought it would go quite the distance, and Ben Williams would probably get the decision win, because I said Ben Williams hasn't shown any sort of power, really. But then it was a bit of a controversial one, because Ben Williams stopped Warren Spencer. I'm not sure if he dropped him first or not, but the referee seemed to, he saw Warren Spencer get hurt and then just immediately stepped in to call it. One shot hurt Warren Spencer and the referee stepped in and waved it off. And Ben Williams taking credit for it. I mean, fair, you were probably winning at that point, because Warren Spencer was pretty decent, and it was, from what I saw, was quite 50-50. But I mean, to celebrate it is a bit, he should have had a bit of conscience, because he was saying he thought, yeah, right, and he thought it was the right decision, and then he's saying that it's not worth a rematch, and I think it definitely is. And I think Ben Williams got a bit caught off guard, because you seen how happy he was when he got given that early stoppage, and you seen how happy he was after the fight. I think he was a bit caught off guard about how good Warren Spencer would be. I don't think he expected Warren Spencer to be that good, so that's why he's probably declining the rematch, because that was a bit too close for him. It was a bit too close for him. Respect to Mams Taylor for getting on the mic after that as well and calling it out and saying it was a bad decision, because it was. Unfortunately, you can't just erase these things. Unfortunately, you just have to wait and let the fight happen again. But if the fight happens again, I'm pretty sure Ben Williams would probably get the win anyway. But he's still sitting there calling out Jarvis, who obviously Jarvis won a belt nearly a year ago now and still hasn't defended it. So I think Jarvis should be told he needs to defend that or give it up. So yeah, that's another one predicted fight. And then we have the co-main event, Anthony Taylor versus Gabriel Silva. Now, what did I say about this fight? I said it's very, very 50-50, even more 50-50 than Minicon and DTG, because Anthony Taylor, experienced fighter, Gabriel Silva, experienced fighter. Now, Gabriel Silva is very technical, and he said he was ready for any of those clinching Anthony Taylor was doing, and obviously we all know he was ready for that. And Anthony Taylor's obviously adapted a new style where he's not always clenching. And what I did say was Gabriel Silva was very good at timing, and Anthony Taylor is someone who charges at you, and timing and precision is key. And he was good, and it's a very 50-50 fight. But what I said was, I think what will be the difference maker in this fight is I think Anthony Taylor can knock Gabriel Silva out, not because Gabriel Silva is a bad fighter, but because Gabriel Silva is quite small compared to Anthony Taylor. Not in height, in size. And Anthony Taylor's obviously carrying a lot more power. If they went all the rounds, it would be split decision, probably maybe a draw. Probably not a draw, but it would have probably been split decision is what you're expecting if they went all the rounds. But it's exactly as I said, Anthony Taylor's carrying a lot of power, and he's on a bit of a mean streak, on a bit of a roll right now. And he took Gabriel Silva out there, and he's calling out Darren Till, and Anthony Taylor's famous for calling people out. The fight I do think should happen though, if he can get that Anderson Silva fight. Yeah, it makes sense. The story arc, he's beat Anderson Silva's son, fight Anderson Silva. It's a good stylistic fight. I mean, and if he can beat Anderson Silva, you know, that's a good win on his record. I mean, that's what Jake Paul did. If he can stop Anderson Silva, he can say he's better than Jake Paul, and he can then get up there with the fights that he's always wanted, like the Jake Pauls and the KSIs. So well done. I called that. But then what I didn't call was this main event, Danny Aaron versus Danny Simpson. Now, obviously Danny Simpson was a step up from Bevo, but Danny Simpson came in with 5 weeks notice or something like that. And I thought Danny Aaron's, he's had a lot more preparation. He seems more into it than Danny Simpson is. And when I saw them on the pads, and obviously pads doesn't mean nothing, right? But when I saw them on the pads and their open workouts, it seems like Danny knows how to box a lot better. He had a proper stance, which Danny Simpson didn't really have. He knew how to throw a punch properly, which Danny Simpson couldn't really do. But then in the fight, it's not like Danny Simpson was pretending to be bad on the pads or in the open workout. That's just how he fought, and it worked for him, because Danny Aaron's was very traditional. He was trying to just jab and jab and straight. But the way Danny Simpson would fight, he would sling his arm out there, and the reach would get to Danny Aaron's, and Danny Aaron's couldn't get in there in time. Now, it ended in a draw, and from what I've seen, it looked like, from the highlights anyway, it looked like for the first 2 rounds it was Danny Simpson. I think Danny Simpson got the first 2 rounds because Danny Aaron's was having trouble trying to get into range and land a shot, because Danny Simpson was sticking his arm out and controlling him at range and keeping him out of close range. But then in the 3rd and 4th round, when it started to get a bit more tired, Danny Aaron's was able to close the distance, and he was actually hitting Danny Simpson with some clean, hard shots. Some of them were probably wobbling him, some of them were probably hurting him. But when it came to the decision, in the first one, the first judge had a 38-38, another judge had it 39-37 to Danny Aaron's, and then obviously Danny Simpson gave a big whack. And so Danny Simpson was clearly quite confident that he won that, and obviously that was the first thing I'd seen before the highlights, so I'm thinking maybe Danny Simpson probably did quite a bit better than Danny Aaron's. But looking at it, the favourite, if I was a judge, I probably would have thought the fight would have went to Danny Simpson, but I can see why it's a draw, because in those last 2 rounds with the shots Danny Aaron's was landing, he was pulling himself back in the fight, and if there was another round or 2 there, Danny Aaron's could have done some damage. Probably not stopped him, but probably could have dropped him or done some serious damage and probably won the fight. So definitely want to run back, because I didn't realise how close that would be. So that's actually quite a good stylistic matchup. They should definitely run it back. The saying they might not run it back. Danny Aaron's might just go straight for Joe Weller, but saying, you know, all the hype of Danny Aaron's fighting for 6 months, training for 6 months, and for him to look like that. I mean, he's got a chin. He's got a chin, definitely. He knows how to move slightly. He's got decent defense. You know, he's bending too much in the legs when he's ducking. He's got to waste his energy like that. But he's not as good at throwing punches as he sort of let on to be. So I think he needs a bit more training before he goes in with Joe Weller. Because don't get it confused, right? Joe Weller, he may have lost KSI, but that's his only fight. Joe Weller's probably trained since then. Joe Weller is probably a lot better fighter than that. So yeah, I think Danny Aaron's needs to train a bit more. I think he's a bit of a disappointing performance, and I think from the look on his face after all the fights, he looked quite sad. I think he knew that he kind of got defeated in that fight, but it's fine. I think where to go from here, I think Danny Aaron and Danny Simpson need to have a rematch. Where to go from here for everyone? Minicon's obviously fighting Josh Bruckner, that's already happening. Mike Edwards is fighting Le'Veon Bell, that's already happening. Sami Hamed just needs another noble opponent, really. There's no one that really comes to mind, he just needs a good opponent. Dean the Great needs to fight the winner of the lightweight tournament, not Shakur Stevenson or Ryan Garcia. That would be terrible for him. HS Tiki-Toki, I think Zerka or Bradley Martin, either one of them works. But yeah, but he needs an opponent that can fight back to show that he's really good, because they're bigging him up saying he was really good, but then he fought someone who got touched once and jumped on the floor. So yeah, Ben Williams needs to rematch Warren Spencer, and then he can fight Jarvis. I think Anthony Taylor, he can do whatever he wants. He can fight Darren Till, he can fight Anderson Silva. Honestly, an Anthony Taylor fight Mayweather exhibition would actually be quite good, but I think a big fight that needs to happen is Anthony Taylor versus Slim. The winner faces KSI, and then Danny Aaron needs to run it back with Danny Simpson, or maybe train a bit more and take the easy fight against Bevo and get some practice in. Who knows? But the KSI performances, he performed Down Like That, he performed Holiday, he performed Not Over Yet, he performed Lamborghini, all the classics, right? The newer classics and the older classics. He performed 2 new songs. One sounded alright, but then one where he had Trippie Redd as the feature. The song was actually pretty good, and then he brought Trippie Redd out as the special guest. Didn't expect that coming. They must have sorted out their beef, because obviously they had beef not that long ago. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't much of a feature from Trippie Redd. I think he sang about 4 bars, and then that was it. But whatever. Trippie Redd doesn't look like a real person, to be honest. He looks like an alien. All the things he's done in his hair and his face, he just doesn't look like a real human, to be honest. But it was quite cool from KSI. It was quite cool. I'm just waiting for him to drop that new music. But anyway, this has been my reactions. I'm pretty sure I predicted everything, apart from no one really expected Danny Aaron's Danny Simpson draw, except for Ben Williams. Ben Williams said it in the predictions video, but you know, didn't expect the Danny Aaron's Danny Simpson draw. And to be honest, I got the Minicon DTG fight wrong, but I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.